May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Today is Christ the King Sunday. It is the culmination of the church year. It's the last Sunday of the year before the new church year begins in Advent. And our lessons today are all about the kingship of Christ, Christ as Lord. So I want to ask you a question, and that is, how do you describe the kingdom of God? When you hear that term, kingdom of God, what does it mean to you? What qualities do you associate with God's kingdom? Is it safety, peace, security and comfort, loving relationships, no more tears or sadness, no more violence or illness or struggle, arguments and fights and divisions ended and reconciliation begun, everything held in balance? Does that sound like how you might describe the kingdom of God? Yes? Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Don't want to miss anything. This is, I think, how a lot of people would describe the kingdom of God, but it's a very different kingdom of God than what we heard today in the gospel. The Jesus that was talking to us today is Jesus that is judging. One who draws a line and says, you are good, welcome to the kingdom, and you are bad, welcome to an eternity of pain and suffering. Jesus seems to be telling us that about what he's going to do at the end of time to separate the good and the bad. And this is what we have understood for so long as the final judgment, the process of deciding who gets in and who doesn't, who is acceptable and who is rejected. This interpretation of the gospel as the gospel of judgment, of separating these sheep people from goat people, I believe is an interpretation from the lens of human experience. And it sounds a lot like what happens when one corporation takes over another. Employees wondering who are sheep and who are goats, who will be retained and who will be let go. The gospel also reads as future-oriented and judgment as causal. If you do this, then you're a goat. But if you do this other thing, then you're a sheep. The fact is, we are the ones that look for sheep people and goat people. How often have we sat in judgment of others? How many times every day have we separated sheep and goats in our own minds, deciding who is okay for us to relate to and who isn't? It's the way we have learned to survive and protect ourselves, not only our bodies, but our emotional lives, our egos, and our interests. The mechanisms for protection are deeply ingrained in us, and it's just part of what it means to be human. So we can know that while we look for who is sheep and who is goat in others, others are judging us in the same way. I believe that the truth of the human condition is that we all have a little bit of sheep and a little bit of goat in us. We are all capable of goodness and love, and we are capable of bad behavior, of making choices that harm us and harm others. And I also believe that Jesus is looking for the sheep and the goat in each one of us. He's not out there looking for good people and bad people, good people to bring into heaven and bad people to banish forever. He's looking for those who are ready to offer their lives to God, who are ready to be transformed, from people looking out for their own self-interest to people looking out for God's interest. Jesus gives us some clear guidelines today. Feed the hungry, water the thirsty, welcome the stranger, clothe the naked, care for the sick, visit those in prison. those were most likely what Jesus and the people of his day and age encountered in terms of people in need. And it's similar to us, but we might have some different language for how to speak about this. We might talk about the poor or any kind of minority population, anybody who is marginalized by our culture. So when Jesus says this, it's not necessarily a prescription as much as it is an invitation. We are invited to offer ourselves in the name of God to others. What that looks like is as unique as each one of us. But what we do know is it means making Jesus the Lord of our lives, the King of our hearts, and the one whose way we follow. Jesus' disciple, Peter, is a great example to us of what it looks like to have elements of both sheep and goats. Recently, I came across a story about Peter that I think illustrates this really well. It was in a book of short essays called Listening to Your Life by Frederick Buechner, a well-known American writer and theologian and Presbyterian pastor. In one essay, Buechner discusses a sermon that he heard about Peter's denial of Jesus, and I'm not going to assume that y'all know what I'm talking about, so just as a refresher, after Jesus is arrested, Peter is hanging around, waiting to see what happens, and 3 times he's asked if he is a follower of Jesus. And he responds, "I do not know the man." So as the church, we've come to know this and call this Peter's denial, Peter's moment of being a goat. But Buechner points out that it was also Peter's truth, Peter's sheep moment. He did not really know who Jesus was, and neither do we. Beyond what the Gospels say and what we profess in our baptism and in the Nicene Creed, what our hymns say and what we believe, Jesus is still a mystery to us. Jesus is just beyond our reach. We may catch a fleeting glimpse here and there, have an aha moment about who Jesus was. But as Buechner points out, the only way to really come to know Jesus is to follow Jesus. And the only way we come to know what it means to live in that kingdom of God where Jesus is King of kings and Lord of lords, that place of safety and peace, welcome, love, compassion, nonviolence, the place that ends our suffering and opens us to life, is by following Jesus, walking in the way of Jesus. We are sheep and we are goats, but when we follow the way of Jesus, when we seek to know and love Jesus, when we offer our lives to others in the name of Jesus, we will encounter Jesus. It's not about an eternity of hellfire and suffering, pain and punishment, but about living in the kingdom of God here and now. It is possible. We need only to offer ourselves to God who loves us, sheep and goats alike.